What if everything you have been told about resetting your brain is wrong? What if the very strategies you have been following, the ones you found on your favorite social media pages, the ones recommended by influencers with millions of followers, are actually built on a foundation of misunderstanding? What if the reason you still feel mentally drained, emotionally scattered, and unable to focus, despite trying every trending wellness hack out there, is not because you lack discipline, but because you were given the wrong map to begin with? That question deserves your full attention, because the answer to it has the power to completely change the way you understand your own mind. Today, we are going to talk about something that is being discussed everywhere, but understood almost nowhere. We are going to talk about dopamine, not in the oversimplified, buzzword-heavy way that floods your feed every single day, but in a way that is honest, grounded in real science, and actually useful to your life. Because there is a difference between information and understanding, and most of what is circulating online right now is giving people a lot of the former while leaving them completely starved of the latter. Let us begin at the very beginning, because that is where clarity lives. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger that your brain produces and uses to communicate between nerve cells. It is often called the feel-good chemical, but that label, while popular, is dangerously incomplete. Dopamine is not simply the chemical of pleasure. It is, more precisely, the chemical of anticipation, of motivation, of the drive to pursue. When your brain releases dopamine, it is not rewarding you for something you have already received. It is pushing you forward towards something you expect to receive. It is the engine of desire, the internal fuel that makes you get up in the morning, chase your goals, reach for your phone, scroll through another video, eat another snack, and seek out every experience that your brain has learned to associate with reward. This is a crucial distinction, and if you walk away from this video understanding nothing else, understand this. Dopamine does not make you feel satisfied. It makes you want. And in a world that has been expertly engineered to trigger that wanting at every single moment of every single day, your dopamine system is under a kind of pressure it was never designed to handle. Think about what your average morning looks like. Before you have even gotten out of bed, before you have spoken a single word or taken a single intentional breath, most people have already checked their phone. They have already scrolled through notifications, absorbed a dozen pieces of stimulating content, reacted to messages, processed breaking news, and sent their dopamine system into a rapid series of microactivations. And that is just the first 5 minutes. By the time the day truly begins, the brain has already been flooded with low effort, high stimulation inputs that train it to expect reward without patience, without struggle, without the slow and meaningful kind of effort that actually builds a life. This is not a moral failure. This is neuroscience. And the reason so many people feel unmotivated, foggy, restless, and emotionally flat is because their brain's reward system has been quietly conditioned to respond only to the loudest, fastest, most immediately gratifying signals, while the quieter, deeper, more meaningful signals of real life have been drowned out entirely. This is the world that Dr. Mindful Shift speaks into, a world of noise, confusion, and well-intentioned but deeply misleading wellness advice. And it is in this world that two terms have emerged, grown popular, and become hopelessly tangled in public conversation: dopamine detox and dopamine fasting. You have almost certainly heard both of these phrases. You may have even tried one or both of them. But here is what almost no one is telling you. These two things are not the same. They do not come from the same scientific tradition. They do not work through the same mechanism. They do not serve the same purpose. And using them interchangeably, which is exactly what most online voices are doing, is not just inaccurate. It is actively harmful, because it leads people to apply the wrong solution to the right problem and then wonder why nothing is changing. A dopamine detox, in the way the term is most commonly used today, refers to a period of deliberate abstinence from high-stimulation activities. The idea is to step away from things like social media, video games, junk food, pornography, and other sources of instant gratification in order to give your brain a chance to recalibrate. It is rooted in the understanding that chronic overstimulation desensitizes your reward system, making it harder to feel motivated by ordinary, meaningful activities. The goal is to lower the baseline level of stimulation your brain has grown accustomed to, so that simpler, healthier pleasures can begin to feel rewarding again. In concept, this is a reasonable and scientifically defensible idea. The brain does adapt to its environment. The reward system does respond to patterns of stimulation. And reducing the volume of artificial, engineered stimulation does appear to help some people reconnect with a quieter, more focused state of mind. But, and this is critical, the term dopamine detox is itself scientifically misleading because you cannot detox from dopamine. Dopamine is not a toxin. It is not a foreign substance introduced into your body from outside. It is a chemical your brain makes, needs, and will never stop producing. Calling it a detox implies that dopamine itself is the problem, when in reality, dopamine is simply a messenger. The real issue is not the messenger. It is the messages your environment has been sending, and the patterns of behavior those messages have trained your brain to repeat. Now here is where it gets deeply interesting, and perhaps a little uncomfortable. Because what we are about to uncover is not just a confusion between two terms. It is a window into something much larger, much more unsettling, and far more personal than most people are prepared to confront. The real question is not simply what dopamine detox and dopamine fasting mean. The real question is this: why are so many intelligent, well-meaning people getting this so completely wrong? And more importantly, what does it say about the state of our collective mental health that we are desperately searching for solutions to a problem we have not yet accurately named? That is the question that should keep you watching. That is the question that sits at the heart of everything Dr. Mindful Shift is committed to exploring. Not just the surface symptoms of a distracted, overstimulated mind, but the deeper roots of why modern human beings are struggling to feel alive, focused, and genuinely motivated in a world that has never offered more options, more entertainment, or more stimulation than it does right now. The paradox is breathtaking. We live in the most stimulating era in human history, and yet we are among the most mentally exhausted, emotionally numb, and motivationally depleted generations to ever walk the earth. Something is deeply, structurally wrong, and a weekend away from your phone is not going to fix it. So let us now turn our attention to dopamine fasting, the second term, the one that is even more widely misunderstood, and the one that carries an even heavier burden of scientific distortion. Dopamine fasting is a concept that was introduced by Dr. Cameron Sepa, a clinical psychologist, as a behavioral intervention rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy. And from the very beginning, it was misread. When Dr. Sepa introduced the idea, he was not suggesting that people literally reduce dopamine in their brains. He was not proposing a chemical fast. He was not asking anyone to sit alone in a dark room, avoid all human contact, and refuse to feel any pleasure whatsoever, which is, shockingly, how the concept was interpreted and spread across the internet when it went viral. What he was actually proposing was something far more nuanced, far more clinically grounded, and far more useful. The idea of fasting from compulsive, problematic behaviors, not from dopamine itself, but from the impulsive, automatic, and often unconscious behavioral patterns that have taken control of your daily life without your full awareness or consent. This is not a small distinction. This is everything. Because if you believe that dopamine fasting means avoiding all stimulation, all pleasure, all social interaction, and all sources of positive experience, then you are not practicing a wellness strategy. You are practicing a form of psychological self-punishment that has no scientific basis whatsoever. And yet this is exactly the version of dopamine fasting that spread like wildfire across platforms, picked up by influencers who prioritized virality over accuracy, and consumed by millions of people who were genuinely trying to take care of their mental health. This is the misinformation that Dr. Mindful Shift is determined to dismantle, not out of criticism for those who shared it, but out of deep respect for every person who trusted that information and deserved better. You deserve better. You deserve the truth. And the truth is that neither dopamine detox nor dopamine fasting, as they are commonly presented online, gives you the complete picture of what your brain actually needs. Here is what makes this moment in the video so critical, and here is the suspense you need to sit with for just a moment longer. Both of these concepts, even in their distorted, viral forms, are pointing towards something real. They are imperfect maps to a very real territory. The territory is this: your brain's reward system is in crisis. Not because dopamine itself is bad, not because pleasure is the enemy, not because you need to suffer in order to heal, but because the environment you are living in has been deliberately and expertly designed by some of the most sophisticated engineers and psychologists on the planet to hijack your reward system for profit. Every notification is engineered to trigger a dopamine response. Every infinite scroll is designed to exploit the same neurological loop that once helped your ancestors survive. Every autoplay video, every like button, every algorithmically curated feed is built with one purpose: to keep your dopamine system activated, your attention captured, and your behavior predictable. You are not weak for falling into these patterns. You are human. But being human also means you have the capacity for awareness. And awareness, as Dr. Mindful Shift consistently teaches, is always the first step toward genuine freedom. So the real danger is not that you tried a dopamine detox and it did not work. The real danger is that you tried something misnamed, misunderstood, and misapplied, and then concluded that the problem was you. That you were too undisciplined, too far gone, too addicted to your habits to ever truly change. That conclusion is false. That story is one the noise of the internet told you, and it is not true. The truth is that you never had a clear, honest, scientifically accurate explanation of what was happening inside your brain, why it was happening, and what a genuine, sustainable path forward actually looks like. Until now. Because what comes next is not another trending strategy. What comes next is not a shortcut or a hack or a challenge you do for 30 days and abandon. What comes next is a real understanding. The kind that does not just change what you do, but permanently changes how you see yourself, your habits, and your mind. Understanding is not the same as information. You can consume 1,000 videos, read 100 articles, and follow every wellness account on the internet, and still feel completely lost. Because information without context is just noise, and noise is exactly what got you here in the first place. What your brain genuinely needs right now is not more content. It is clarity. It is the kind of deep, settled, bone-level clarity that comes when someone finally explains something in a way that matches what you have been quietly feeling inside, but could never quite put into words. And that is precisely the gift that real science-based understanding offers. Not a plan to follow blindly, but a lens through which you begin to see your own mind with honesty, compassion, and genuine insight. So let us now bring everything together, because this is the part that matters most. This is where the real shift begins. Not the dopamine shift, not the chemical shift, but the mindful shift, the internal reorientation that changes not just what you do with your time, but how you relate to your own thoughts, impulses, desires, and choices from this moment forward. The honest truth about both dopamine detox and dopamine fasting, when stripped of their viral distortions and understood in their purest, most scientifically accurate form, is that they are both attempting to address the same fundamental problem from two slightly different angles. That problem is compulsive, automatic, low-awareness behavior. The behavior of reaching for your phone without deciding to. The behavior of eating not because you are hungry, but because your brain has been trained to associate boredom with snacking. The behavior of scrolling for 2 hours when you intended to spend 10 minutes. The behavior of avoiding difficult, meaningful work in favor of easy, stimulating distraction, not because you are lazy, but because your brain has learned, through thousands of repetitions, that distraction delivers a faster and more reliable dopamine response than effort does. This is the pattern that both approaches are trying to interrupt. And interrupting a pattern, truly interrupting it, not just suppressing it temporarily, requires more than abstinence. It requires awareness. It requires the deliberate, conscious act of pausing between stimulus and response, and in that pause, choosing differently. This is what behavioral science calls response inhibition, and it is one of the most powerful cognitive tools available to any human being who chooses to use it. So what does a genuinely effective approach actually look like in practice? It begins not with restriction, but with observation. Before you decide to detox from anything, before you commit to fasting from any behavior, you must first become an honest and compassionate witness to your own patterns. For 1 week, just 7 days, pay attention without judgment to when you reach for stimulation, what triggered that reach, how you felt in the moments before, and how you felt in the moments after. Do not try to change anything yet. Simply watch. Because the moment you truly see a pattern clearly, without denial and without shame, you have already begun to loosen its grip on you. Awareness is not passive. Awareness is the most active, most transformative thing a human mind can do. And it is the foundation upon which everything Dr. Mindful Shift teaches is built. Because no strategy, no matter how well designed, will produce lasting change in a mind that has not yet learned to observe itself honestly. From that foundation of awareness, you can then begin to make deliberate, strategic choices about which behaviors you want to reduce, which environments you want to redesign, and which new patterns you want to consciously build. This is where the principles behind both dopamine detox and dopamine fasting become genuinely useful, not as rigid rules to follow, but as flexible frameworks to adapt to your own specific life, your own specific triggers, and your own specific mental health goals. Perhaps for you, that means setting firm boundaries around your phone use in the first hour of the morning, protecting that time for stillness, movement, or reflection instead of immediate stimulation. Perhaps it means deliberately scheduling periods of low stimulation time throughout your day, not as punishment, but as restoration. Perhaps it means replacing one compulsive habit at a time with a slower, more intentional alternative, reading instead of scrolling, walking instead of watching, creating instead of consuming. None of these changes need to be dramatic. None of them require you to disappear into silence for a week or deprive yourself of all pleasure. What they require is intention. What they require is the quiet, consistent, daily decision to be slightly more awake to your own life than you were yesterday. And this is the philosophy that runs through everything Dr. Mindful Shift stands for. That real mental wellness is not built in dramatic gestures or viral challenges. It is built in the accumulation of small, conscious, courageous choices made day after day by someone who has decided that their mind is worth understanding, their attention is worth protecting, and their life is worth living with full presence and genuine purpose. Your dopamine system is not broken. Your brain is not your enemy. You are not too far gone, too distracted, or too deep in your habits to find your way back to clarity. You are simply someone who needed an honest explanation, and now you have one. The path forward is not about perfection. It is about awareness. It is about patience. It is about choosing again and again to live with a little more intention than the algorithm would prefer. That choice belongs to you. It has always belonged to you. And the fact that you are still here, still watching, still searching for something real in a world full of noise, that is not weakness. That is the most important kind of strength there is. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.